Hello. Happy Wednesday, Wanderers.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Soul Wanderings. I am AJ,
And I am Natalie.
and we're here to hang out with you this beautiful, for us, rainy Wednesday night.
Right?
There's a feel in the air, there's a vibe, there's something going down. I can feel
Something
it.
going down.
Mhm.
Whew. I wonder, does everybody feel this? Does
Yeah.
everyone out there feel that there's something going down? Most of
Well,
the people I talk to feel like there's something.
it's kind of eerie in a little way. And I think that our show topic tonight is perfect for the vibe in the air.
Yes. It's a tricky
So,
little subject, or maybe not,
did
but
you
it's
say a
certainly
cute little subject?
tricky.
Oh, I'm like, there's cute. Not the words I
No,
would have chose, but
nope,
okay.
nope, not cute. Tricky.
Oh, that's fun. So, yeah, we're going to talk about hope tonight.
Hope.
One of the best four-letter words there are.
Not always so easy to sit with.
Hope.
Oh,
Let's hope. Yeah. So, but before we move on, I just want to welcome all of our wanderers who are filing into our chat rooms. We are hanging out on YouTube and we're hanging out on Facebook under the Soul Wanderings pages. We love being on these platforms. You guys are so much fun and interactive. And tonight, I would like to invite you as we are hanging out and discussing the topic of hope that you share a little hopeful sentence or two with our audience. That way we can share them up on the screen as the show goes on so we can amplify the energy of hope and help each other in hope. So if you have a quote or a saying or an analogy or anything like that that you feel inspired to share with other wanderers, please do so. I think that would be a beautiful thing for us to do together.
mhm. Beautiful.
So, yeah, so good. If you guys want to know more about Natalie and myself, you can visit soulwanderings.com. We have a little bio in there of us and past shows. We've been doing the show for a hot minute. We're just new to our own YouTube channel
Whoop, hold on.
because we've
Sorry.
always
Newt.
we've always been babied by a studio and a producer. And since we've gone out on our own, we're having these beautiful learning curves like we just experienced. And um, it's all it's all so good. So thank you for being here. If you haven't liked or subscribed to our channel, please do so. It does help us reach other wanderers as well. And we appreciate the support so much. So tonight, moving on, we're going to talk about hope. So Natalie is the one who chose our topic this week. And I immediately was like, ah, hope. Are you sure that's what we're talking about this week? Feels a little heavy. A lot of our shows lately have felt a little heavy, but they're so important to talk about. And hope isn't the aspect that is heavy, it's the environments that we're living in this current time that's heavy. And our clients and friends and family are all expressing some sort of um, feeling and emotion and experience around the current events, particularly, and just the energy and life in general. And so,
Yeah.
what's that?
Yeah, I was agreeing.
And then Natalie, with her human design, her signature is
Mhm.
hope. And she definitely brings that into my life and reminds me in many ways to be hopeful. And so, thank you for bringing this topic to the platform tonight, Natalie. I'll let you roll with it and what has come to you in inspiration, and what would you like to share with us tonight?
So I didn't always have this great relationship with hope that I have developed since I learned that it was my motivation and thereby a big aspect of my personal design. So within my personal design, well, with anyone's human design, they'll have a motivation. And hope is just one of 6 different motivations that are available. But hope sits on this binary with guilt. So this bounces back and forth. So those of us that will have hope as a motivating factor bounce back and forth between guilt. So the opposite of hope is fixer, guilt. The opposite as far as it comes to this binary within the design system. And the design system explains humanity in a differentiated way. So humanity has this binary in it that goes from hope, so hope and pain and back again, or hope and guilt, which is a fixing sort of energy, or back to hope. So hope is not a fix it energy, which is something to consider when you're thinking, okay, so, and hope exists or is really beneficial, not exist. Hope is the beneficial aspect or a tool, the thing that we're going to pull out of our toolbox when things are difficult. When it difficult times require hope. Hope doesn't really need to it doesn't really have a placeholder. It's very passive and sort of in the back during times where nothing's really going sideways, wrong, any of those things. So hope is a thing that really exists within the framework of and becomes a necessary tool during difficult times. And it brings possibilities. It brings that there's another side. There's a beyondness to this moment. All of those are different aspects of hope. And it's a counterpoint to things need to be fixed.
Mhm.
So hope brings this energy of I'm going to sit and I'm going to find out how I'm going to be okay in this now with all this going on. And that's to sit in hope, is to sit in a part of it, not really a part, to sit in acceptance of what is, to then see through it. And that's what I find that coupled, use hope and acceptance, and during these times, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes. And as much as everything changes, nothing changes. I was having a conversation earlier today with someone that's like, as far as it comes to change out of our personal within the framework of the United States, we've had administration after administration after administration for our whole time that we've been a country. We've changed out presidential administrations on a regular basis, 4 or 8 years. So this happens all the time. This has happened. And everything seems fresh in our now. So a lot of times people get really pulled into it and say, okay, there's, everything is ending, where things are done, that will never be the same. Probably not, because that's actually true of life.
Right.
That everything's shifting and changing and evolving and moving forward, and each now gets to the next now, to the next now. So when it comes to hope, first starting out with this realization that it sits in an area where we don't look to change or fix exactly what's going on.
We just be.
We just be.
And boy, have I learned so much patience in the just being. Right? It's a practice, and
It's a
we can
practice.
say this to you, "Just be. Everything's gonna be fine. Just trust." But it's not as simple as that. It really does take an honest effort on your part to have this belief that hope will bring you to the end of the experience. I like to look at hope um, as like a lighthouse in a storm,
Mm.
right? We're in this storm of life. We're having these intense waves or low waves or mediocre waves. Either way, there's storms going around, the weather clears up. But in the darkest times, it's like that light at the end of the tunnel, that light from the lighthouse you can see off in the distance, and you're not always sure how you're going to get there, but you see the light, and so you know that anything is possible.
Yes. That is another aspect of hope is a light in a storm.
Yeah.
So how do we
So
go about embracing hope? And why would I pay attention to the resistance. If there's resistance to having a place for hope sit at the table, pay attention
mm,
to that. Why would you resist having some aspect that said, this isn't all that it is? This isn't all that it
right.
is.
So, the feeling on this topic when you said, "I think we should talk about hope," and I was like, "Really?
Uh,
Can we talk about hope for an hour?" Without sounding like we're being this woo-woo inspirational team, like, "Come on, guys, you can do it." That's great, right? But the reality of being in that space of hope, being hopeful, is there's something that's going on that's not in alignment for you. And oftentimes we get so caught up in that experience that we're having that we can't not see our way out of it. Things can become very dark in an instant. And before you know it, you're just, pulled down into the muck of the experience. And we've talked about the power of our thoughts and how they can affect everything that we do. And in those times when things feel heavy, it's really easy to get consumed, I would say, by the darkness of that because it feels easy in that moment to just be in despair, to not have hope, because hope is definitely a muscle that you have to actively build, and not everybody wants to do the work. I know, like, thinking on hope for me, I immediately went to my experience I had, my near-death experience. It was, um when you have an experience like that you can't explain, there's no words for it, and you're trying to find the words, and you're trying to find the meaning behind the experience, uh, all you have is hope. All you have is exactly that, and that's the best way that I can feel into that energy when you bring up hope is putting myself in that experience of when I came back that I really truly hoped that what I experienced was real, because I knew if I put my energy into the hope of that experience being authentic as it felt, that it would change the course of my direction. And it's something that I've always held on to because, in that experience, I was shared my purpose, like my purpose in this incarnation on what was um, my life's purpose, like what I was meant to be doing here. And it felt really warm and fuzzy when I got the information, but I didn't know what it meant. And so I had to hold on to the fact that um, it was shared with me, and it created a space for me to be hopeful that everything that was shared with me was exactly what was meant for me, because I wanted it again. I wanted that feeling again and again. And I knew the only way to do that was to find out what that message meant for me in that experience. And it was all about hope. It truly was. And I think that we can all relate that to an experience or more that we've had in our lives that can bring us to this place. on the other side of that despair, of that heaviness or that darkness, that brings us to the other side where there's this light and joy and happiness and freedom and all of these beautiful things once you get through those heavier situations in life.
Yes, for sure.
That's all I've got.
That's that's it.
I'm kidding.
So I'm going to go back into talking about hope in relationship to, in the language of human design, guilt. But we're going to talk about hope, and with the understanding that guilt is that it's not okay and needs to be fixed.
Yes,
Something's
yes,
wrong. So with guilt,
definitely.
there's like something wrong, and it's on a binary. So we're, I don't want to leave the impression that it's all hope and just blindly hopeful. That's not what I'm saying. So we take into consideration this two sides of a coin, or a stick that's, either end of this on this binary, that hope and guilt or wrongness, and gratefully so that it goes back and forth, because to be just hopeful, just hope, stuck in hope, can be blinding just as much as just being stuck in everything needs to be fixed, everything needs to be fixed, everything needs to be fixed. So this materium is set up in a way that people that carry hope in them by design also go into guilt from time to time. And it's called transference, but they'll go there. So I do that too. Okay, here's where we need to fix something and attend to something, and then go back into my motivation of hope. So with hope on this binary, some things do need to be adjusted. Sometimes we do need to look at things with a critical eye and make some adjustments, and that's appropriately so. In times where there's a lot of things going on, and on top of the fact that us as humans are literally made to think about a lot of things that don't matter to us. And so we literally go through life with information 24/7. All this information can flood us at any given time, and we could just be awashed with so much information that literally isn't in our now, but is in someone else's now. And then we get pulled away to other things. This is watching the news or checking out Facebook. And there's been plenty of studies that say watching social media, it's really good for connecting with the outer world, but it can also have a psychological effect on us in various ways, to say, interpretation of whatever it is that you're watching, on top of the fact that so much can be replicated. It's hard to know what's real anymore out there, because things can be manipulated in all kinds of ways. So coming back to this and saying, hold on, the pause is always beneficial. It is always beneficial to pause and wait for further insight, information, just more to come along. Research, check it out. These various things can be beneficial in times, if we're looking at news feeds and things like that. Now, I want to shift from that and go into working and having hope with people. So let's talk about what plagues a lot of humans, which is difficult in interactions, in relationships, communication, interpersonal interactions. Then we want to fix either ourselves or the other person. When we live in a school, a system that schools us, and so we're always going to school in our life, and often there's these lessons that come along. Do you ever want to be like, no more lessons, please? But when we get schooled by things and we just contemplate something that's happening in our own personal life, and we pause for just a little bit. Don't jump to conclusions, overly react, wait for a little bit more. Is hope. you want me to answer that question that you have up there?
Yeah, is hope I'm finished what you're saying, I'm just putting it up for next.
Um, so when we're navigating these different aspects of life, a pause always benefits. It really does. Now, had this question in my class yesterday that's like, what about an emergency situation? Okay, that's different. So I guess always doesn't work. Generally speaking, pausing for insight is beneficial. We can be really reactive in all kinds of we collectively as humans can be very reactive, and being super reactionary generally means that you haven't collected enough information. I
Yeah.
had someone teach me a powerful lesson one time, and this has to do with communication. I was a tough student. It took me a long time to get it. But the lesson, this particular lesson was, if you start talking immediately after someone is stopped or like is talking, and this was personal to me, she said, if you start talking the minute I stop talking, you are not listening to me
Right.
fully.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that, and I was like, yeah, that resonates so much.
And so there's this hope is a possibility for pausing to
Mm,
observe life as it's flowing in the now. And it brings that within relationships, and pausing to really check in to see, does this need to be fixed? Do
mhm,
we truly have a problem here, or is it an experience? And I like to use that analogy just to take these two words, problem or experience,
mhm.
and say, what do I have here? Do I have a problem, or am I having an experience? Well, probably, maybe sometimes both.
I think everything is an experience,
That's
regardless
right.
if it's a problem or not. It's all an experience. I mean, we are here for school, people.
Right. Don't forget that. We're always being schooled.
It's all an experience. And how are we doing our homework? And how are we taking our tests? And how are we presenting our projects? Right? Everything's
Right.
school.
Right. So with
This,
this question, you go ahead.
I was going to say, this question is hope and trying to survive the same.
So I don't think that it's the same, but I do think that so the way I would answer that is, hope is a tool for survival when you are trying to survive. Hope is a
Mm,
tool to be utilized in that experience of trying to survive.
yeah.
It is often what keeps people alive in really awful situations, is
Yeah.
that the situation as it is will end, and something else beyond it um, could be better
Yeah.
than the current situation.
Yeah. I have another question. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put you on the spot tonight. I'll be like, I'm
Okay.
interviewing
Do
Natalie tonight. I'm just gonna hang out and chill.
it. Works for me.
How does a person survive when everything seems to go wrong for you? Ooh, I like this question.
Um, so
There's a lot of answers for this.
there is a lot of answers. So I'll go with the first one that popped in that said, if this has happened in my life, if everything seems to go wrong for you, it is highly possible that you're out of sync. You're in
Yes.
the wrong place, wrong. You're not aligned. Something has to shift.
Mhm.
I'll add to that the fact that the universe will squeeze us until we get to where it needs us to go.
Literally.
Literally.
If you're uncomfortable, there is a reason why.
Right. So pausing for insight is beneficial. Um, that's like, check yourself before you wreck yourself. It comes from a movie. It's like, you just got to check yourself. Okay.
I
And
say
really,
that a lot often.
now we talk about the different aspects of life that so often take and challenge us to take a good look at ourselves. Why would that be beneficial? Why is that even important? Well, one of the reasons is because the action that we take is the action that we can take.
Mhm.
We absolutely have no power to make anyone else change or take a different action than they're taking. So to be empowered in your own personal life requires, on many different levels, to pause and go, wow, how maybe, so this was one of my contemplations, to say, in how maybe am I getting it wrong or misinterpreting, or how am I so limited in my perspective that I don't see all the myriad of possibilities that do exist in the world beyond my limited sight, conclusion, or those different types of things. And I
Mhm.
think that happens generally with humans, but we can often be just locked in to a perspective. And I've heard it said that a change of perspective is a miracle. To shift your perspective is truly a miracle.
I believe that.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so we can be really, really quite dedicated to our current perspective. People will argue over, the old adage that says when you have like 8 people around an elephant and you tell them to describe it, they will argue about what they're describing when they're touching the same animal. I mean, blindfolded people.
Mhm. It Everyone has their own personal perspectives with everything in
Oh,
life.
for
So I
sure.
love that you shared that because there are people willing to like die on their hill, on their cross to be right. This ego that is taking place right now is like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong.
Right,
I'm right.
right,
And it takes you out of the moment when you are trying to prove yourself in that way. Like how do you grow from that space where you just can't see past the point of any other, you know, experience or option or anything that could be different outside of yours.
right. And if we were to take that understanding and just look inside yourself and say, um, would I want anyone to be holding this perspective in regards to me?
Mhm.
To just have that sort of perspective on me, to say that I'm wrong and there isn't anything about my perspective that's meaningful.
Mm.
So these are expansive concepts, points of expansion, not contraction. And
Mm.
it's through the expansion we're expanding anyway,
Mhm.
They say the Big Bang, everything's just going bigger, 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 bigger,
Bigger
bigger.
and bigger.
So get on the ride. Let's go for expansion.
I wanna bring up we always, I should say we always, but more times than not, we bring up the map of consciousness.
Oh yes.
And so we have this map of consciousness that, Natalie and I refer to quite a bit. So when you're feeling in the lower vibrations, like attracts like. So going back to that question that you were answering about um, everything seeming to go wrong for you, everything is energy, you guys. And so if you're hanging out in the lower energies and frequencies, you're going to attract more of that. So if everything seems to be going wrong for you, I feel like one of the best things that you can do is something that's going to raise your frequency. And so if you are in a place of anger, which is one of the lower vibrational feelings and emotions and energies, um, even just like moving your frequency to a place of neutrality will elevate your consciousness, will bring you out of that negative energetic space where hope can step in.
Right.
right? Because hope would be the next level at after neutrality. Hope would be, you know, what comes after you raising your frequency and being in this place that okay, maybe something can new can be possible.
And that goes
Maybe
with
I
that,
can get on board with that.
right? That goes with the right above neutrality is willingness.
Mm,
This willingness. Okay, maybe I can. Maybe I can just let you finish all your sentences and I can hear you out.
mhm,
I don't have to believe like you. I may not even completely understand you. And so often that's true because we're designed so different than each other.
mm,
We really are crafted different than each other. There's such a multitude of aspects within each one of us that can differ from the other. To you really want? Do you really want everyone to think like you? What a boring world. There's absolutely no contrast. In fact, everything, there would be nothing visible
mm.
without the contrast, without the differentiation. There
I
would
love
be,
that you brought that up. That's exactly what I was gonna say too. I love that. I love how in sync we can be.
yes, it's beautiful how that is. So with all the sameness, when we're all going with this sameness, and a lot of people get uncomfortable with debate or they feel like it needs to be proven a particular way, get overly. I remember this quote, this happens really many, like it was probably a couple decades ago, that said, is it more important to be right? Or being right more important than the relationship? Um, and that can be a really good checkpoint to just check yourself to say, do I need to just be so right with this? It
Mhm,
can be extremely challenging, extremely challenging to shift to a willingness. It
mhm.
can be, but then it isn't.
You know,
It
I
is.
feel like at first, when you start to develop a practice of hope or any other higher vibrational experience, it does take a willingness, but anything is possible, right? The only people that are getting in our own way is ourselves. And the only people who are going to change our reality and what's going on up here is us. Like it's an inside job. And
Yeah.
so no one's going to come and save you at the end of the day.
No,
Like it
because
really does fall on you. You
yeah,
are the creator of your reality. It doesn't negate the fact that things happen and there's experiences that other people are creating that could affect you as well. But how you choose to react to it is going to shift the experience more in your favor if you're working from a higher vibrational state. And we've
right.
talked about this, like I'm kind of repeating it just as a reminder that hope is possible. It really just comes down to just even saying the word and just feeling the vibration of that word in your body, which will shift the energy in and around your body, which will shift the reality of the experience because it gives you that little glimmer. It gives you like something to hold on to. Like, well, maybe it could be possible. You just never know, but you don't know unless you put that energy into your reality.
So while you were just talking, I could see in my mind's eye why hope and guilt are binary, because they're both required for the shift. They're both required.
Absolutely.
They're two, but not two. The fact is that with hope comes the fixing, and the fixing comes hope.
Mm.
They are, wow. That was really cool
I love
to
it when you get these
do.
intuitive hits and
I
share.
was
I'm just
like,
like, "Ding," you know?
oh. And so when we embrace the material, when we embrace what's actually happening, and we stop resisting and we surrender to the world as it is now, and surrendering doesn't, it's as simple as, okay, here now.
It really is that simple.
It's so yeah. So
It's just
that
like when they explain frowning, right? It takes a lot more muscles to frown than it does to smile. And I think of that because the amount of energy some people that I know that are putting into the heavier experiences
yeah.
is so much harder on them and their experiences in general. Like,
Hmm.
it's so much harder than holding on to something like hope.
It's true.
Mhm.
So we feel into that, just what you were talking about, where people get caught up in a power struggle. So definitely when there's this alleged or an idea that there's a power struggle going on, and oftentimes there tends to be, but power struggles aren't always accurate, or a
Mhm.
read that there is a power struggle isn't always an accurate read of the situation. I want to remind people we do not have access to another person's thoughts, feelings, or motivations. We don't have access to it. Anything that we feel, and I work around a lot of intuitive people, intuitively is still filtered through our personal lenses,
Mm.
our own intuition, our own framework of seeing. So we can never know what's inside another person. We do not, as humans, have that level of awareness. We just don't. It's not in us. In the future, we'll evolve to different levels of awareness, but it's not where we currently are.
Mhm.
And so remembering that, often we will definitely write stories in our heads about a person. Whoa, that's my light just comes out. That was must
You're all
was
bright
like
and
it's just
shiny.
it was like a brilliant point or something. I'm like, well, okay. For those that were
That was your hope.
that was my that was my
That was your
hop.
hope
I was like,
shining.
oh yes. So remember that. Um, and I love to say this from time to time. In personal interactions, remember that we have a ratio of 2 ears to 1 mouth. And sometimes it's beneficial to ask yourself, why am I talking? Is this helpful? Does this help? Sometimes not talking is a really powerful thing. It can create a level of uncomfortability
Mhm.
in any, but pause. Hope is this pause that's a beneficial thing.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, there isn't anything that can't be waited out a little bit. For those of us that are emotional, we've talked about this before, and we're going to say it a lot because one part of this show is to bring in human design and some wisdom from that field of study, which says when emotions are high, there is zero clarity. It's like a dust storm. It's like a muddy body of water. It's like chaos incarnate.
Right.
And so it's such a benefit of waiting for the dust to settle and to see things clearly over time. Because
Mhm.
most of the wounds that happen is through emotional. And then people say things that don't mean, they really don't mean it later, but they'll mean it. They feel
In the
like they mean it
moment.
in the moment. And there's a lot of hurt that can be going on in those high emotional
Yeah.
times.
I've had my fair share of that recently.
Mm.
And I'm in a place of hope, which I just love that you brought this to the table. Like, let's talk about hope this week. Maybe that's why I was so resistant. I was like,
I don't get
really?
hope.
I don't, but it's beautiful. I have someone in my life who says hope a lot. In fact, I got a little message today about hope, and I was like, oh wow, we're talking about that this week. I just, it just you can't make this up.
No.
It's so good. I just want to take a quick second to thank everyone in the chat room for sharing your little glimmers of hope with us and each other. If you guys have a question, type them in all caps. We love questions. And also, if you have a little glimmer of hope that you want to share in a quote or a song or anything like that, just pop it in there. We'll share it up on the screen, and that way we can help support each other even more so.
So I did see that question. There was a question about depression.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so my work in grief informs my view of depression, because a lot of times people will sink into grief, and depression can be viewed as depression as a chemical imbalance or something out of whack, when it's unprocessed grief.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is, I see as an active. To grieve is a verb, so that's an action-oriented thing. And one of my favorite authors I was just listening to, because I'm going to go see him in a few days, and I was inspired. I was listening to a video, and he said to be a practitioner of grief. So to practice grieving will help depression, because depression is a suppression of all the emotions along the way, whether it's through conditioning, through how you were raised, through partnership, through different people in your life that don't want to be able to sit with you. There's a myriad of reasons why you'll push down and suppress emotions, in addition to they just run under the surface and you're not even aware, which creates this cycle of no energy, lethargy, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So sorrow is an antidote for grief, for depression. To be truly true, to go in and really feel what's in there, to turn the light on in the place where you feel all the monsters are,
Mm-hmm.
and to see that it's actually not a monster at all, but it's your loved one's jacket that still hangs on the chair that you haven't been able to find out how to move. That.
Are we having a busy parking lot this evening?
No, I don't
Oh.
even know why that is happening. But maybe that was it, because it shifted the light in here.
Yeah, we have a comment: learning to breathe, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. I have to remember that process.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great point, Ronald, and thank you for sharing. All of you who were sharing, thank you so much. I oftentimes hold my breath and have to remember to breathe. And I see it in other people because, right, I'm familiar with it with myself. And it really is such a simple thing. Like, how many times are you connecting to your breath? It's just easily available to you and so often taken for granted.
Yeah.
And it can bring us here to the present moment so quickly, I believe, more than anything else, even thought, because it's the action behind the thought and can bring you to the here and now so easily and so gently. And when you connect to your breath, it also allows for your brain to slow down and an opportunity for a new perspective.
Well, the brain takes up 40% of the oxygen in the blood any given time. So when we
Look
hold
at
our breath.
Natalie getting all technical. And I'm just, hope, hope I'm floating on a cloud. I love hope.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
Well, of course. No, hope is a great thing to have. I will never
Mm-hmm.
discredit that. I was just like, when it got brought up, I think, it's interesting. Natalie and I go through this thing where we pick a topic and then we get schooled. It's like we put out to the universe, hey, we're going to talk about this topic this week. And then we have all of these experiences to support us in the topic. They're not always gentle experiences. And mine this week have not been gentle. This week has been very challenging. And when I sit here and think about all of the things that have taken place, all I have is hope. Like, I don't know how things are going to work out, but I hope they will.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the word hope a lot, but I see, I don't necessarily do, unless I'm like sending messages, because I don't know how to word things to people any other way than say, I hope this for you. But mine is, I know, like, I just know. You guys know that things will work out. They always do.
Mhm.
And hope, I guess, is the same thing. You hope that it will work out. I know that it will work out. I trust that it will work out. Everything is always working out for me.
Yes, and those are um, inspirational aspects that we can use within our own verbiage to say everything is always working out, and this is time isn't different either, even if I can't see it at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of times we can't see what is not in our moment. You know, we can't see the stars when the sun is up. We can't see the stars if it's cloudy outside. There's aspects of not being able to see. We can't see the next city over. Does that mean that they don't exist? No. So just the fact that you can't see beyond this moment and it feels really dark does not mean that that's not going that things aren't going to shift. And
Mm-hmm.
so some little tiny shift. Now, maybe if you're in a state of depression or everything is going wrong, you can't jump all the way to hope. So on the map of consciousness that you were referencing, we said just shift to neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Coast. Just coast for a little bit. Just you can't step all the way to that way. You can't step all the way from a really dense place even of grieving to knowing that it's all in alignment.
Right. Right. I like this comment from Genghis in the chat room. Kind of makes me think about the Bible quote, faith without work is dead. It's like sometimes you also have to put forth the physical effort.
Yeah.
And Joe shares, it all kind of goes back to the law of attraction.
Not kinda.
At least it seems like that.
Right.
Good night,
Right.
Maria. Thank you for popping in and for your interaction with the show. And then Patty shares, where hope is involved, I pray. I love that so much.
Oh, these are all positive ways to just be with that
Just,
as it is.
yeah. Yeah. And so this is interesting just because of, the experiences that I've had in the last several days. And then we come here and talk about hope and all of you putting your effort in. It just, like, thank you. Like, it gives me renewed hope. And I believe that um, each one of you also would feel the same way just by all of this love that's being shared here. Teamwork makes the dream work.
It does. So let's see if there's what else? I was
Natalie has a lot of information on hope, and that's why I've been like, here you go.
right.
You can
Just
have
like
tonight.
how
And this is
else?
why we're a team.
Yes. We bring different perspective. You and I definitely see things differently in different ways, and learning to embrace that differences. And it's my language that I consider all the time because I am talking about how we each get to be ourselves.
Yeah.
That's an aspect where that can be embraced,
Mhm.
and so differences in so many ways they cause the separation. And in the consciousness, in the language, we say there really is no separation. The illusion of separation creates the loneliness, creates the difficulty where we say we slip away from it's all one, even if we don't want to go all one, whatever, all one experience, all one in one city. How can you have all these different personalities running around in one city? It's one city with all these pieces and parts moving around.
Mhm.
and embracing the differences. These are all different ways hope gets deployed. There's lots, maybe it's as easy as a Google search to say, give me some quotes about hope, and then you'll get flooded with that. So in the dark times, hope is a candle, and you put one little candle tea light in a dark room, and the darkness moves away from the light. It just happens. So darkness is the absence of light. So you light a candle, and the candle can be hope in the mind, and you watch for the resistance that the mind will have sometimes. There are times, people, where love hurts or hope will hurt people because they're so deep in the pain and that's all they can see. But there still is space in between the pain. There really is breath. There's space in the pain. Even in physical pain, there's little, love the candle, little breaks in the pain pulse. And I have worked with people for a very, very, very long time, and I've met people in dark places. It's a big part of what I do. I have met people in my work, especially with suicide loss. It's so profound to watch people still get up out of bed and get dressed and attempt a life when they are facing such profound grief. And hope is there in those parts where, even if it isn't spoken, it is okay, I hope that I'll find my way through this one day at a time, 1 second at a time. Life really can hold deep areas of darkness. So don't take this lightly, saying, but to be fully in life, to embrace it, to lean into it, is to really be alive, to take all of it. It's intense sometimes.
Intense is a good way to put it. Do you ever feel like there's a moment in time where hope could possibly be a toxic trait? Because I have seen where people can take hope to the point of being unrealistic.
Yes. Yes. I can see that even with people that have it in their design, it's a passive, it's actually a place that's really meant to be passive. So it's a place where we pause, which means less activity than otherwise. So someone could just be so hopeful that the weeds never will get pulled, or the dish fairy will come along, or we just use these simple, silly little examples, but it's true.
Yeah.
My mom would say, look, the dish fairy doesn't live here, so someone has to do the dishes.
Oh, I hope for the dishes to do themselves often.
Yes.
Like, ugh.
And so it can be a toxic trait where someone really doesn't want to take a good look at
Have
themselves,
accountability.
or to take action when necessary. And I could see that people built with that within their framework can be too passive when life demands a bit of action to do things.
Right. There's work to be done always.
Work to be done.
Always.
I know someone that he's rather passive. He's like there's people like this that don't completely grow up. So they're old people, 40, 50-year-old people that haven't quite taken the full reins of their life yet.
It happens.
And so when the reins are completely handed over to them, they don't necessarily know how to be as proactive as life might need them to be. And so I can find in places like that. Another way that it can be toxic is when you're in a really awful, abusive situation that is literally damaging to you, and you just hope that it might change.
Yeah.
Because you can be so
It's
afraid and
unrealistic.
fearful. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's in any situation that you hope someone else will change.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
right? Or things that are out of our control. I
Right.
mean, I mean, if we look at like just even the current events, a lot of this is just out of our control. I do have a question from Charles, and it's a great question. How can we grieve ourselves, lost time and lost vitality?
Oh, that is something I talk about often with different people. And lost vitality, it's not as complicated as we may think. We literally could acknowledge that we do have feelings around the lost vitality and what it is. So I do frequently have groups that I deal with people that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s. And that's the topic of the conversation, to say, when you wake up and your body doesn't function the way that it used to,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely there's lots of changes when you get in your 70s, 80s, 90s. You're not as vital as that. You can't always walk. Like if you have to use a walker or assistance, there's a sorrow in that.
Yes.
And there can be lots of like, the body's betraying me, or just denial, various things. And I think it's very
Well,
similar to a lot of things, is you just face forward to it and just say,
just
well,
even an able body, not even an aged body.
can have loss of vitality,
Yeah, just
or
like being in that same energy, right? Because people, I mean, there are people who have disabilities who can't move their bodies the same.
right. Yeah. So missing an able body. Yes. All these different aspects. So grieving, um, I keep it relatively simple when I'm talking about grief, and allowing a feeling when it walks through the door. We all know when a feeling walks through the door. And so I
Mhm.
often use this analogy for when grief walks through the door, we know it is a person. We know grief just walked in the room.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, well, hello, grief. You could even sigh. Here you are again
Mhm.
to visit me in my room when I thought you couldn't come in, but you made your way here to my safe space. All right, sit down. Let's have some tea. Let's feel it. Grief comes in and it visits and it goes. It really does work that way. So
Yeah.
instead of happy thoughting grief away, you just allow for grief to visit. It will come and go. Happy thoughts come and go as well. A lot of times people push grief away, or push those difficult aspects of life away, shorten it, not let it fully come and go. And so it's a space of allowing,
Mhm.
which a lot of times people think it's wallow, which could turn into wallowing, but it's allowing.
Yeah. It really, that I think that is such a beautiful thing to say. It is all in allowing, even the hope. Like it is a permission slip to the universe that you want to feel all and experience all of the things.
I'm,
Honestly.
I know, but I was just laughing because as you were talking, I'm hearing or experiencing this inside my intuition that said, isn't it so kind of us to allow the universe to do what it's going to do? It's like,
Yes, isn't that so nice?
it's right.
Good job.
It's like, oh, okay, you're doing this anyway. Okay, I'll let you.
Yeah. You know, I used to fight my feelings. Like really, like I don't want to feel them. I'll just bury them. I don't need to deal with them. They're not important. It's irrelevant. Whatever excuse that I would make, and I would just put them away. But it causes a lot of other issues down the road. I promise you. And the neat thing now is that when things come up, I'm in this space where that allowing can take place. And if I could recommend that to anybody, is just like really have trust in the process, because nothing is by accident. Nothing is by accident. And the more you resist, the more challenging your experience will be. And having hope that it all works out is really a beautiful place that you could be, because you know, at the end of the day, like how do you want to feel? Like what experience do you want to have inside of yourself? Because
So,
again, we create that.
right. So adding to that a little bit, what do you want to feel? So do you want to feel lighter than heavy? Or do you
Mhm.
want to feel heavy?
Yeah.
There's times where maybe the answer is I want to feel really heavy today. Okay. But
Yeah.
if you don't
And
want to
that's
continue,
okay.
yes. But
And feel it, feel it, and feel it. Do it.
right. But heavy can become a habit where you you're not willing to shift and allow for
Mhm.
it to be lighter because your mind says I can't see how it could be different than this. And that's a correct statement because we can't, you have to allow the light to come in. You have to allow the healing. You have to allow the assistance. Most often in people's life, they have an aspect of their life. If they want assistance, people have probably already offered it. There's often the light is trying to come in. The shift and change is trying to come in.
Yeah.
And people resist those things. Oh, that's great.
The other thing, and to add to that, I think it's really neat when we do let those little glimmers in
Yeah,
with the possibility of hope, because if that's all that we have, what do we have to lose?
right.
Hope is a beautiful thing, and I'm really grateful you brought up the topic. It was needed, obviously, for a lot of people tonight. Thank you for the comments and questions and interaction in the chat room here on YouTube and on Facebook. If you guys haven't already liked the show, make sure you do a thumbs up and subscribe so you'll get reminders of when we go live, which is usually every Wednesday at 6 p.m. There will be a Wednesday this month we won't be here, but other than that, we love being here and we're here as much as we can be. So if you guys want to know more about us, you can visit soulwanderings.com. And then if you have a show topic that you would like us to talk more about, make sure you connect with us on any of our social media platforms that are linked on our website, or you may email us at connect@soulwanderings.com. Thank you for all of the hope tonight, Natalie.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed being able to have this conversation and give out a little bit of planting some seeds and helping people see just a different way through.
Hope is definitely your jam, and everything
Yeah.
that you shared is way more than I could have in this space. And I do appreciate the different perspectives that we come from, and I value your teachings. I know they're heart centered and come from a place of experience, and we're grateful to have you.
Oh,
So
thank
thank you for
you.
showing up the way that you do.
Well, I am so blessed to be able to be here with you and to do this great, great thing and giving me a place to use my voice.
It's needed in the world. A little Natalie peace
That's
throughout
right.
throughout the galaxies.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, so good. All right, guys. Well, we're going to say goodnight for now, but we'll see you all next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thank you so much and have a beautiful week.
Yes, and hopeful.
I was going to say, I hope it's hopeful.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.